Welcome back. You're still watching the news review right here on Power Breakfast with me, Fred Ndimuli. We're done with the issues of Kenyatta Hospital and medical negligence. We will revisit that topic another time. We want to look at the big one. Kalonzo says we want to meet with Uhuru too. And let me just look at one of the tweets that one of my panelists has posted some time back. Simeha JME at Simeha JME, and it mentions the Luya Nation problem is clearer now than ever before. We give prime striker positions to the most cowardly and unimaginative individuals. We must put forward a new set of brave leaders. I don't know who exactly he was referring to. I had read another tweet from at K Boni Mtetezi, that's Boni Halwale's Twitter handle, with regard to what happened last Friday at Harambee House, at that meeting between President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga. The principals of NASA met on Monday at Stony Athi, and after that meeting, Boni Halwale said now the declaration was that that discussion had been shelved and that something new was going to come up. Has that changed?
I think I'm very glad that finally we are all agreed that there is need for national dialogue. That is so important. Why? Because I broke away, and one of the members of our team of experts is here. I broke away from the NASA thinking and said, let us go the dialogue way. And if you follow my Twitter handles of the whole of January, I was being bashed that I'm looking for a job and stuff like that. But I braved it because I believed it was right. So why am I grateful? It is because of two people. The first person who was a problem for dialogue was President Uhuru Kenyatta. Anytime we mentioned dialogue, he was saying, I don't want anything called dialogue. If there must be dialogue, we only talk about development. He was a problem. The second person who was a problem to dialogue was Raila Odinga. Because thanks to his so-called keyboard warriors, the moment somebody took a divergent view, he was labeled a coward or a traitor. Now Uhuru and Raila, who were a problem in the beginning to this, have now agreed. We must all be very happy. Having agreed does not mean that when Uhuru agrees with Raila, the whole country has agreed. They have set the ball rolling. It now gives us an opportunity to make the talks all-inclusive. By being all-inclusive, I am not thinking about the other core principles. There are many critical players: the civil society, the trade unions, the religious groups. They are the media. You have a lot of brilliant people with brilliant ideas that are going to enrich the conversation.
So when you said that we shelve the talks that happened on Friday, what exactly did you mean by that?
What I meant is that we said shelve it. We have to structure it by going to our political parties. And you saw Right Honorable Raila Odinga went to his party, ODM. They have made a pronouncement. Next week, Fort Kenya, ANC and Wiper will also make their respective pronouncements. If you ask me as an individual, I cannot wait for political parties to think for me. This is my position. My position is that we must support national dialogue. However, we want to go national dialogue, the government on that side and the opposition on this side. So we will support, as Fort Kenya, we will support dialogue, but as the opposition. If ODM has chosen to defect and go to Jubilee, let them stay there.
Do you think that's what they've done?
Basically, that's what I've done. What you've seen the MPs arguing in the National Assembly, that's basically what they are doing. So you can't block them. It's their democratic right to choose who to work with. If they have defected to the government side, let them stay there. Then we shall be this side as NASA, i.e., Wiper, Fort Kenya, and ANC. And if the other parties go, Fort Kenya will still remain in the opposition. And if Fort Kenya goes, let me tell people that during the Grand Coalition government, thanks to only 5 members of parliament who went and allowed me to be their chairman as chairman of public accounts, my Committee of Public Accounts was able to play the role of oversight in the grand coalition government when everybody was in government, and we did a good job up to and including the achievement we made on Minister Kimunya,
Okay.
Deputy President Ruto, Professor Ongeri, and others.
Okay. Okay.
So we do not need too many MPs for us to have an effective opposition. So that even if ODM is going to join Jubilee the way you are talking, do it. But the few who will be outside will check the government.
Bwana Simeha, that statement that ODM can go and join Jubilee like they've already done it. Listening to John Badi yesterday in the National Assembly, he said ODM will now support the Jubilee's Big Four agenda, which was a very telling statement, yes. Being from the minority side, coming out clearly and saying we now support the Jubilee Big Four agenda. Was that what was agreed upon at the parliamentary group meeting?
Not at all. I will tell you, and I repeat, not at all. I will tell you that there's a lot of misunderstanding and knee-jerk reactions in the whole of this.
Plus some excitement? Excessive
excitement and so on from Jubilee and NASA, within NASA affiliate parties. A lot of misunderstanding. And the best people would have done is to stop and then ask questions so that they understand before they react in a knee-jerk manner from a point of ignorance. What you saw on Friday, of course, was a culmination of many things, which we don't have to go into now. But one thing I have to state on record is that Raila Odinga has remained very consistent in terms of calling for dialogue, and not just saying dialogue, but putting in writing, with the help of the technical teams in NASA, what it is that we are asking to dialogue about. This has been from last year. Until after, I think, 12th of December, is when Raila Odinga, and the rest of the NASA leadership, actually, to be fair to everyone, said, now that you have refused to have dialogue to this point, it is too late, but we will still dialogue in different circumstances. So they didn't quite totally drop dialogue. They said, now the circumstances will be different. You remember the newspapers, I think, quoting Kalonzo Musyoka completely, in my opinion, out of context, and saying that it will be something else, and the Somalians, or no, but just different circumstances. So let's be fair to each other, and these people have been consistent. The disagreement is just a bit of what Honorable Halwale has pointed out. What is it that we want to dialogue on? Whereas Kenyatta and his colleagues had this thing they're calling development, which to me was a complete misunderstanding of what development is, because they think it's the exclusion of the issues of politics that bedevil society. They think development is tenders and SGR and so on. We on the NASA side, with our leaders, maintain that we need dialogue, beginning with relooking at our relationships in this country, redefining our relationships so that we can have a common understanding. When you say development, the four of us understand the same thing.
But you agree that even leaders are confusing the country?
Absolutely.
When John Badi, as a chairman of ODM, says that ODM will now support the Jubilee Party's Big Four agenda. Former senator here says ODM has moved to Jubilee. Where does that leave us?
No, there's too much excitement and too much bile that gets into this. I watched a bit of the debate in Parliament yesterday, but both in Senate and the National Assembly. And you get a sense that, you have people who think it's still a popularity contest, that who has outdone who in this and who has outdone the other. Please listen to Raila Odinga, and he speaks on the basis of a position that is discussed, agreed, and documented. Do not just listen to anybody.
Okay.
What they did on Friday was not about NASA and Jubilee. They began as individual leaders, and I insist on using the word began. They don't have a deal. There's no deal. There's a statement of intent, a demonstration of intent, given that the misunderstandings in this country, the polarization, is most personified in these two individuals. It is important that they give a signal to the rest of the country that we are prepared to dialogue. So when you hear what you are hearing from Badi and others in Jubilee and in NASA, it's excitement. When you hear what Daktari here is saying, that ODM has moved into Jubilee, it's completely erroneous. Because there's been no position about grand coalition, whatnot, and so on. It's about supporting what the leader has said should be done.
Let's hear from the Jubilee side. What is your understanding of what happened, and what your colleagues here on the panel are saying?
Well, let me first allude to probably a wider true than reality. You see, Fred, if you took an addict of heroin or cocaine and withdrew him from the substance he's been taking, they normally suffer what's called withdrawal syndromes. And it is a process to manage those withdrawal syndromes. You see, the politics we've been playing, that have been played previously by most politicians, have had the effect and the addictive effect of what probably the other addicts suffer from. Because you see, there are people who have been in politics probably now more than 5 years for that cycle, for the first term and onwards, who do not know any other brand of politics, who have not been called up to stand up and show who they are or why they have occupied the positions or how they found their way, other than playing the politics of hatred and division and calling names and all this kind of thing that you've seen that have drawn the country back to where it is. And now when they find suddenly that they're on their own, that there is no one else to go and abuse, and there are no cliches and crescendos, they have now to speak the language of leadership and issues. They're lost. And so I'll tell you, you know who speaks for who. When Raila Amolo Odinga speaks, NASA has spoken. And don't be cheated. No one can cheat Kenyans anywhere else. When Uhuru Kenyatta has spoken, he's the president. Jubilee has spoken.
Do you think,
they have been
example,
given.
It is be necessary for the president to meet the other
they have. Let me first finish my point, because you see, all these reactions now you are seeing about these is because of those two. That tells you that they have impact when they speak. One is the leader of NASA. The other one is the leader of Jubilee. And anything else that you hear from down here from anybody else saying this or that, they're just echoing. It is the sound bouncing back from the wall that it's hit, but the sound is out, the call is out, the direction has been shown. You alluded to the meetings that were held first at Manzoni, then you came on to the ones that again they held in the one that was held on Friday, and then afterwards they held a meeting. ODM did, and in their PG, and you saw the headlines yesterday and what they said. And you've also heard the discussion here on what was being said yesterday in Parliament, including you quoting Mbadi. Mbadi is the leader of the minority in the National Assembly, and how has he got into that position? He's been given that position by virtue of the fact that he has qualified according to the merit. And so when he speaks, he does not only speak for himself, he speaks for the other minority that he leads from the other side. And so all these other, you hear a lot of other business here.
So when John Mbadi says that ODM will support the Big Four,
not only him, but everybody else who spoke, and that tells you, and this is how I summarize my thinking and my theory on this. You see, we have to realize that we have been wrong in many ways. The first way that we've been wrong is embracing and living for confrontational politics. Politics can be competitive. You can critique development or the agenda of any government or any person. But the confrontation, and as they say, Fred, a broken clock is only right twice in a day. We cannot live that life and cheat Kenyans that we're taking them anywhere. I said this before. If you look at that span of time between the year 2008 and 2011
we want to respond.
and 2011, wait, Bonnie, because you're not the host.
Okay, because our time is almost up.
What I want to summarize with is, if you look at that span of time between 2008 and 2011, this country experienced some of the most impactful, tremendous progress that we can remember between Raila Odinga and Moi Kibaki when they had the coalition government. Okay. We can redo it. Yes, and we can still have the politics, but politics that is constructive, that is useful.
You're a member of the Ford Kenya Party. You're the deputy party leader of Ford Kenya. Is this the intent, that your party leader wants to meet the president himself?
I have not spoken to Kalonzo, Wetangula, and Mudavadi about this matter, but that does not stop me from making a comment if indeed Wetangula and Mudavadi agree with what Kalonzo is reported to have said. If they agree with him, I'll be agreeing with him as well. If they don't agree with him, I will still agree with him.
With Kalonzo?
With Kalonzo. For this reason, Kalonzo is sending a clear message that the fact that the president made Raila, it doesn't mean that it has made it all inclusive. Mm-hmm. So Kalonzo is saying, he would like to be given an opportunity to also hear it from the president directly, what it is that the president told Raila. Partly because we were rather cautious and hesitant after we had been briefed by Raila to endorse everything that they did, for the simple reason that when talked to, the thing that is at hand is the issue of let there be dialogue or let there not be dialogue. But then when the papers report, they go even further. They itemize issues that the two leaders talked about. They even go as far as suggesting that positions are going to be given in government, which to us is not our primary concern. We want to go to the national dialogue as members, loyal members of the opposition, and then agree with the government or disagree on some issues and create a middle ground that will move our country forward. But an attempt whereby you want, through people agreeing to have a dialogue, you make everybody to be seen to have joined Jubilee, we are not going to join Jubilee. And for your information, Senator, thank you, you have acknowledged that some of things we stated slightly before you. These things of saying, if Uhuru has said as the leader, if Raila has said as the leader, then that is what it is. Anybody saying anything is merely an echo. Where do you leave the ANC of South Africa? This is a political party which has got sufficient hygiene that they were able to remove their own president. How Kenyans would love a situation whereby if Uhuru was wrong, Jubilee would say he is wrong and they remove him.
Okay.
Just
before I come to you, Senator Simeha, on this matter and the tweet I read, it appeared to describe or talk about some leaders from that community who, if we could decipher from that, it could mean some of the leaders within NASA, some of the principals from there. Is that what you think about some of the principals within NASA? And now that you hear that they want to ask for their own meeting with the president, do you think that they're able to go and represent probably your side of the coalition?
First of all, I don't hold brief for them. I don't hold brief for ANC. I don't hold brief for Ford Kenya or for Wiper. And neither do we have any control over what each party makes their own decisions. So it would be fair to respect whatever each party has decided they want to do and whoever they want to meet. So I think that one, we just leave it there. But secondly, to what you're saying, that the tweet you are referring to, that I say as a member of a particular community and as well as a member of a technical and strategy person of NASA. Not that I think, I say that from experience.
Yes.
One thing many people have not been privy to is the context. Why that Friday? How come it happened on that Friday and not say today or next week when the president has gone to, when Uhuru Kenyatta has gone to Cuba and come back? There is a background to that, and Raila Odinga made it very open. This is arising out of the 30th of January 2018. We had firm agreements within NASA on what ought to be done on the 30th day of January 2018. Some of our leaders failed to respect it. They chickened out. It was a Simon Peter situation where people are being asked, someone is being asked, but you are also normally with this guy. Aren't you? And they say, no, watch your ujinga. It's not me.
I don't know.
I don't even know that guy. That was a Simon Peter situation on the 30th of January
did they lose
2018.
Did they lose their place at the table of negotiations because of January?
No, I cannot say that. Not losing their place at the table of negotiation. Not at all. Every Kenyan, every leader has their right to participate as a leader, because they have not lost their rights as leaders of their parties. They haven't. It's just them questioning the manner in which this was done. There was a reason. People had moved on to preparing for 2022. People had moved on to cutting certain deals behind the scenes for whatever, 2022 or whenever. So that had to be exposed. Look at the timing and ask yourself questions. That had to be exposed. Otherwise, there's been a process ongoing quietly, because not everything has to be in the public domain, on which is the best way to get out of this quagmire, where we are bitterly disagreeing and aggressively arguing as Kenyans, that we can still disagree and prosecute our issues without so much venom. But the timing has to tell you that there was some mischief that had to be cured. And this is the mischief of cowardice. And come to the tweet that you're talking about. I say that not because I think, because I know. We've got people in our community whom we've given positions of leadership for a very long time, positions of reverence. But when it comes a time when they need to stick their necks out, not just for the community, but for the entire nation, not just the Luya nation, but for the rest of the nationalities in this country, they chicken out. And then they come up with excuses. I think that this one we have to call them out. Call them to order and say, look, it's unacceptable. We have got many other leaders in these regions that can take those positions, and we will light fires under your seat so that you vacate, and other leaders take those positions.
The question of 2022 is an issue for both NASA and Jubilee. There have been accusations that everyone is simply angling for 2022. There are fears as well that the talks between Raila Odinga and the president also touched on that 2022, and these fears are not exclusive to NASA. Even within Jubilee, there must be such fears as well.
Well, Fred, let me first quickly answer.
I hope you'll still answer
yes,
this one.
Sure, I will. Absolutely. I just first wanted to allude to, or rather to reply to what Bonnie had said and asked, where do we place ANC? And
of South Africa.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you meant the ANC, the local ANC.
No, I was close.
Answer my question.
Because if it is the local ANC, then it should place itself first for it to be placed. And I want to say two things as I answer your question. First is precisely what Simenka here says. You know, and that is towards that politics of 2022. I'm not a member of NASA, but some things are clear on the table. You know, when Raila Amolo Odinga's name was included in the ballot, lastly, most of them went to their boardrooms to redraw their game plan again and said among themselves that now this guy, we had done an agreement with him, he's only going to run this time. Come 2022, he's not going to be a candidate. And we've seen finally he's on the ballot paper. So let's yeah, that's where I'm going. Why are you hiding my name? I'm going to answer.
Our time we want to comment on 2022 one.
Now, Fred, after these guys did that, when it came to the time of reckoning, now that they have seen Raila is not written off the way they had thought he's written off, and that's what Shimeka is telling you, although you don't want me to emphasize that. Maybe for their sake, but it is the truth. Okay. Finally, that is why you find Raila as a dynamic leader has also got to make decisions as a wise politician, and that is what he's doing. Now come to this 2022 thing that you're saying has got implications even for Jubilee. 2022 for us, if you ask me from where I stand, is a very simple game plan. Very simple game plan. Stick to your agenda. You have an agenda. We have a manifesto. We have candidates. We have a candidate for the presidency, who is Ruto. We have a clear roadmap between now and then what we need to do. We have made promises, and now that the president and the former prime minister have said they will work together to ensure that that politics is toned down so that we can realize that agenda. All the better for that country. In as far as we are concerned, I have told you very clearly, we are clear in our minds. We have a candidate for the presidency come 2022. The only game plan we need to stick to right now is make sure that we fulfill the promises we have made to the people, and that is the agenda we are going to sell in 2022. That we are truthful people, we keep our word, and at the end of the day, you can hold us on account to what we say.
They've made a plan for years. Yes, heading to 2022. But things can change. And such a discussion between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta is one such time that things can really change drastically.
Yes, I wish them well for that clarity of vision. But I would like Kenyans to understand that what took place on Friday was about only one thing: politics. These are the talk of, we want to bring communities together, we want to reduce the tension. It was not the case. It is politics. Why? One, Uhuru Kenyatta, it was continuing to be extremely difficult for him to serve as president when he doesn't have legitimacy. So he had to play a political card that was seen to bring Raila, his opponent at the 2017 election, on his side, so that he tests to see if he would get the legitimacy. On the other hand, my captain is aware that an animal called NASA is not amorphous. NASA is a legal entity, and I'm glad that Zimeka is here, which has specified and spoken to the current and the future. Raila was forced to make a decision, knowing that since he has missed what he wanted in 2017, he might want to have another go. Should he attempt to have another go, if that animal called NASA is still there, then it ties him. It would be in his interest that he runs away from NASA, so that he frees himself to be able to have another go. That would be very good politics for him. Which then leads me to my conclusion that, give it to Raila. What was he trying to do? A, was he trying to be a statesman, or was he trying to be a politician? Because he has done so much for this country, and I would never belittle him, I want to believe that he was being a statesman. If he was being a statesman, then he is saying, let me lead this country for the final time when I'm not even going to run for president, so that I ensure that I leave the political playground when it is level.
Yes.
Statesman. But because he's a politician, he might have been playing politics. And if he was playing politics, Kenyans should not be surprised if an attempt is made to amend the constitution so that we move from the presidential system, we go to the parliamentary system. That will thrash any other agreements going towards a presidential election.
And those attempts have been there already.
Yes, and then it will give the former Prime Minister and President Uhuru a relook on what they would want to do. Kenyans think about the story of Russia between Medvedev and Putin. I would not be surprised if then Raila chose to be a ceremonial president under those circumstances, and Uhuru chose to become the prime minister, so that then Uhuru would attempt to shortchange Ruto. He becomes executive prime minister for another 5 years and hopefully win again 20 years, and Uhuru will have shortchanged Ruto. Raila will have shortchanged Kalonzo and Mudavadi, and life will go on.
Yes.
And we therefore have to face this reality. We are not going to leave the opposition. These are the things we are going to pursue from the opposition.
Okay. As we wrap up this discussion, because our time is up.
Yes, what I just want to tell you is that with regards to these matters, 2022 is nowhere on Raila Odinga's mind. With regards to these matters, I'm sure he may talk about it in other contexts. I have no control, I do not know. But to the best of my knowledge, what has been discussed formally and what led to Friday and what is coming out of Friday, we have still maintained that we must deal with the issues of 2017 and many other issues, as you saw in that MOU, before you ever think of going forward, okay? So those who are talking about 2022 are those who become extremely uncomfortable with this move to bring on the table what NASA, and it is in NASA's manifesto, that one of the first things we deal with is our relationships. That is what Honorable Raila Odinga is pushing for. As NASA, I know that we do not know our presidential candidate for 2022. We've not begun any process with regards to the presidential candidate. Raila Odinga is not the one who will determine the presidential candidate for NASA 2022. We have no idea.
As an expert, would you like to tell the country about Article 10
yes,
of the NASA agreement?
I want to say that.
What does it say?
Very openly, just hang on. I want to say that very, very openly, that we have an agreement in NASA that ODM, not just Raila Odinga, by the way, ODM will not field a candidate at the next election.
But any other party can.
Any other party can.
Even a member of ODM, if he moves to Wiper, he can be presidential candidate.
Those are details, and I'm not going into those details. Those are details, and thank you for those details.
Okay.
So, Fred, we've never had any reason to begin to discuss that agreement. Okay. It has come from elsewhere because of anxiety. Okay. But let them stay calm. That's not where we are headed.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, our time is up. We need to give way for other discussions.
Why would I have 30 seconds after you've allowed Bonnie a whole long time to tell a whole long story, which is just a matter of minutes?
Go on. My director tells me our time is up, and the only thing I can allow is to make final remarks for 30 seconds. If you're not able to, then we'll have to forfait that, unfortunately. Let's start with you, Senator. 30 seconds.
These are not my final remarks. This is my comment on what Bonnie Halole said.
Okay.
Because what Bonnie Halole said is just a product of fertile imagination. Yeah. And what I have stated clearly as the position of Jubilee is that we are clear in our minds. And you see, Fred, whether we like it or not, all those scenarios that they have tried to play out are scenarios that have been witnessed by this country. We had the Grand Coalition government before, so it's not a new experiment to Kenya. Okay. I mean, if we have had those proposals that were brought by the MP from Pokot, they are on the table. We are running a presidential system right now, and so we've also sampled it. So there is nothing. So there are not people who are going to be imported from Mars or any other place to come and plan our politics. It is what suits the country best. And you know, those agreements that you have had in NASA, they had this agreement or whatever, they have had agreements before. I mean, including some that they impugned and didn't live by.
Jubilee has an agreement.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So that is not how to make judgments. So can I now make my final comment?
Final comment.
Because it has to be fair.
As for Kenya, ANC and Wiper, we are going to go for the national dialogue. And we are going to go with the agenda which was already agreed on with all the four NASA constituent parties. But as we go, we are going to go to that national table of dialogue as the opposition. The stakes are too high. The history of Jubilee is that if it's left unchecked, they will go beyond what they have done for the last 5 years, and what shall we be left with the country? So we'll be the loyal opposition. Says you can go and share the positions in government, ODM and Jubilee.
You know, Bonnie, you must try to find a place for yourself between now and 2022.
I
mean, by being relevant.
If Senator can let me make my closing remarks, is one, Raila Odinga hasn't negotiated away anything at all. All the NASA positions remain intact, including questioning the legitimacy of President Uhuru. All those things remain intact. They possibly may be part of the agenda for the discussions.
Despite what John Buddy said yesterday.
Yes. Ignore the excitement. Okay. Nobody has negotiated away anything.
But John Buddy is senior than you in ODM. How can you ignore
Secondly, the party positions are put in writing. What was taken to Parliament in writing is what you pay attention to. If you watch that debate, you had so many MPs speak from both sides, and you wish you'd take them to communication lessons from both sides. So that's why you have to understand things in that context. Finally, those who think that Raila Odinga will make them and guarantee them positions of presidential candidate and president, better think twice. And each one of us who wants to be whatever we want to be, we work for it ourselves. Okay. Not to put this burden on Raila Odinga, for God's sake.
My final remarks are that the dynamism of this country must lead politicians to ensure and to realize that when politics calls for change, we also must change. Okay. And this country is bigger than any single individual. So when the calls from the people say that it is time to rethink the politics of this country and ensure that also politicians follow that cue, then that is the way we have to go.
Thank you so
That's my
much,
final
Senator
remark.
Kimani Wamatangi
Thank
from
you.
Kiambu, John Simeha, NASA strategist,
Joseph.
and Joseph Simeha, NASA strategist, and former Senator for Kakamega County, Boni Khalwale, helping us look at the biggest headlines this morning. Power Breakfast still continues. We are totally out of time. Let me just say good morning.